Welcome back to Morning Express. It's now 7 o'clock and it's time for us to get into the state of the nation, where we put our pulse on the nation on certain matters and find out whether we have a healthy heartbeat. And in case you're joining us now, just a quick reintroduction of the guests that we have in studio, the panel. I have to my extreme left, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who is the Deputy Party Leader for ANC. We also have Honorable Kembi Gitura, who is a former Senator for Murang'a County, and Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. Now, this morning, we are conversing around the question of whether governors should get immunity. The question that we had asked earlier on is, should governors enjoy prosecution immunity? Remember that we do have the COG chair, and that is Josephat Nanok, who had come out on behalf of the other governors and said that they should be immune like the president. This was on the backdrop of the arrest of Sospita Ojamong, the Busia County governor, on charges of misappropriation of funds. So that's a question that we're running this morning and would like to find out what your take is. Now, just to give a little bit of history to this, we do know that there was a proposal for the deputy president to also have immunity, on him. And this was during the Hague issues that we had. But the LSK did respond to that. And I'd like us to just read through what the LSK response was to that before we get into the conversation. If we can have those boards where the LSK had a response to that particular request that was being made at that time for the deputy president to have immunity. And this is what the LSK had to say. Now, the amendment, according to them, was... the amendment will seek to full confer immunity upon the occupants of the office not democratically elected by the people to Kenya to discharge constitutional functions of state so as to the recipient of sovereign powers donated by the people. Again, they also said that for any function of state discharge by the deputy president is acting president under Article 143. He is afforded the benefit of the constitutional immunity by Article 143, and which extends to the immunity to the person performing the function of that office. So that was basically the deputy president, or rather there was an amendment sought to have the deputy president enjoy immunity. But let me start by first of all asking you on the panel as to your thoughts on whether that is even something we should be considering. Let me start with you, Honorable Kirwa.
Well, first of all, immunity from what? Because if it is the issue of corruption, I think none of us should be afforded that particular immunity. Because Chapter 6 about integrity just goes beyond the law. It is the manner with which you carry yourself in the office, the manner with which you allow the office to have some full confidence of members of the public. And therefore, when you say somebody is immune from prosecution for mishandling public funds, then we are saying, let us loot, and once you leave office, that is when we'll pursue you. Mm-hmm. This is something that we should consider. But last week, I said something about the issue of uncuffing of the governor. And many people may not have understood me. What I meant is, before somebody is charged and convicted, allow him the respect that he deserves as a leader. And many members of the public were saying, okay, the governor is just like any other person. The issue is, tomorrow, if Governor Ojamong is acquitted, you will have already lowered his reputation by uncuffing him when he has no capacity to run ahead of a policeman. And if there is a policeman who cannot catch up with him, then that policeman should not be in service, because certain modicum of respect should be afforded at certain offices. So I do not share the issue of immunity, but I think the prosecution should do proper investigation before they prefer charges against an individual, so that we don't have so many people being taken to court. Just, it's like you are dressing the gallery. Okay. For you to look like you are doing something.
All right, and I want us to listen into what some of the leaders had to say, and the chairman of the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee, Opiyo Wandayi, and the vice chair of the Senate County Public Accounts and Investments Committee, Nithika Linturi, have rejected the proposal to shield governors from prosecution. The Council of Governors wants sitting governors to enjoy immunity from prosecution just like a sitting president. The lawmakers are telling governors to carry their individual responsibility on graft.
The best practice in jurisdictions that are devolved is that the heads of both levels of government have immunity on civil and criminal proceedings while they are in office.
There's nothing like collective responsibility or collective accountability. They are being charged in their individual capacities.
That criminal responsibility in the country or anywhere is individual. Do not allow governors to have any kind of immunity. Because they made themselves procurement officers, they made themselves the accounting officers, and they committed the counties beyond what their finances would require them or would allow them to do.
All right, Ambrose Weda, from a lawyer's perspective, one of the requests or one of the things that the COG was demanding is respect. And I think Honorable Kiro has alluded to that. And one of the things they said is that Ojamong's arrest was humiliating and not befitting his status in society.
Respect is earned, it is never conferred. You get into an office, you behave in such a way that you're so respected that even if there are questions for you to answer, you will just be treated with respect. And we've seen quite a number of people here who would be treated. First, what the governors are asking requires a constitutional amendment and a referendum. You understand that? Mm-hmm. But the way we ushered them into the office with policemen following them, and some of them walking with their own kitchens, and some having their own chairs and their own carpets, and the ego in them became so much. That's the basis of the demand. You see one governor has his own kitchen, another one has his own carpet. You see a governor like my teacher, Kevoda Kebwana, walking around like he has nothing to fear. Others fear everything. Mpaka when you ask a governor, surely, I thought when wananchi see you, they want more favors. They want to be friends with you. They want to kill you. So you don't need all these police. So that is an ego question, which will require us to spend billions of shillings to amend. But let's look at it properly. Governors are not that high. Governor, you are not that high. A governor is not equivalent
to the president.
To the the president is not equivalent to the Chief Justice of the Republic, who heads an arm of government. The Chief Justice is not immune. He's not equivalent to the Speaker of the Senate or the National Assembly. They have no immunity. They're not equivalent to judges of the Supreme Court. Apart from the president, who is insulated for the period he is president, the rest, all of us are not immune, and we have, some of them are big. Okay. So what they're asking, I think, is a question of ego, and they should actually stop it.
Honorable Kembe Gitura, your thoughts on this and the fact that, according to the governors, they feel that they too head governments, and as a result, they need to have some form of immunity so that they're able to operate without fear.
Yes, they head local governments, yeah, if you think about it. And the president, they should read the Constitution, because the Constitution is quite clear on the role of the governor. If you read the Constitution and then read the County Governments Act, yes, you see what the role of the governor is. And it says he's the chief executive officer of the county, period. That's what it says about the governor. And then that he has to work with the government of the county. It talks about the national government. If you look at the role of the president of the Republic of Kenya, I think it's Article 131 going forward, then you understand the difference between these two so-called governments. Because the president is not just the symbol of national unity. He's not just the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He addresses the national parliament when he wants to, but mandatorily once a year. And he can declare war, yeah, with the approval of parliament. He can also, you know, with the approval of parliament, dissolve a county. You understand? So the president, I mean, and these are just one of a few things that I mentioned, is the symbol of national unity. The governor of County A cannot declare war against his neighbor. County B. Yeah, he wouldn't, because he has no country to rule. They need to read Article 6. It talks about leadership from the front. It says they should act as, they should be leaders, not rulers. They should not behave as if they are ruling the people. They act with the consent or the consensus of the people. For me, I think they have completely the chairman of the Council of Governors has completely misconstrued the Constitution, because if he reads the article on immunity, even the president is only immune when he is the president on matters crime. On matters civil, he is immune when he's done something in his capacity as a president or anybody acting in that capacity. But on matters criminal, and they have seen it in other countries, yeah? Once they cease to be a president or prime minister, they're not immune anymore. That's why you saw the president, the former prime minister of Pakistan, jailed for 10 years. And I think it's a good example to the governors, because before he was jailed, they did a lifestyle audit on him. And they found all the apartments he owned in London, all over the place, in New York, kila mahali, and they told him justify it, and he couldn't justify it. And he was jailed for 10 years. So governors should understand that they will not get immunity from stealing from the people. And like Weda has said, it's a constitutional provision. They're asking us to go back to the ballot in a referendum and declare them immune so they can continue plundering. Because actually they are not just stealing, they are raping the counties. And this is something that should be stopped, and everybody should be held accountable. And like some people have been saying this week, and nobody is saying that Governor Ojamong is guilty. I'm a lawyer myself, and I know that he is innocent until he is proved guilty. And he must be treated with utmost respect, the same way I should be, the same way Wanjiku and everybody else should be when they are facing these kind of charges. At the end of the day, he is personally responsible, whether or not he stole or facilitated the loss of 8 million shillings from his county.
And maybe just to understand, on matters arrest, and maybe that's one of the things that they're raising, and I've always had this also as a question personally. At the point where you're being arrested, must you be handcuffed regardless of the fact that you're not resisting arrest? One of the things that they mentioned is that Ojamong presented himself. So he was not resisting arrest. He brought himself as required by the law. Why the necessity to handcuff him? Yet he has brought himself.
Maybe it was not necessary at all. And maybe it is not, I mean, some of these things are hangovers maybe from the past. If he presented himself, he should have been, like I say, everybody should be treated with dignity and respect. Because the presumption of the law is that you're innocent until you're proved guilty.
Correct.
But instead of the chairman of the Council of Governors making the unfortunate statement he made about immunity, what he should do, or what they should do, if they're acting in unison or in concert on this issue, is to make sure that Governor Ojamong has very good lawyers, competent lawyers who are going to help him deal with the charges that may be facing him, instead of telling the citizens that the governor is so much
should be immune. All right,
or is at the level of the president to get immunity.
Honorable Kira, should we be concerned or worried about their attitude and their way of thinking? Because if these are the county leaders, and their thinking is that because one of them has been arrested, then what we should do is have them immune. I mean, just the thought process there is a bit worrying for me.
Yeah, it's worrying because the formation of state is different from the formation of county government. Because as Mheshimiwa said, the president is not only head of government, but is also the head of state. And the formation of state brought those powers and issues of immunity, because the president, we transfer our sovereignty as a people of Kenya, we donate to the president for him to exercise on behalf of the rest of us. And therefore, he has such a huge responsibility, unlike that of the governor. Now, the thought process is convoluted in the sense that I would have expected them to deal with issues of corruption differently, because the danger with us saying they will be immune from prosecution is that leaders are role models, and being role models, we transfer some of our behavior, some of our mannerisms to the people of Kenya. And if you say 47 individuals are going to be immune from prosecution, you're actually telling the public your resources are going to be taken away for the next 4 years, and it is at the end of it that you may have a stop on it. And whoever gets into office again will again take our resources in perpetuity. So the issue is simple: no immunity. Even the thought of immunity is something that is almost criminal, in my opinion.
All right. Ambrose, do you want to add on to that?
What I wanted to add is about the arrest and being handcuffed. Let me tell you, it is just that the heart of the human, it's inclined to wickedness. this being arrested and handcuffed is drama that is not necessary, that is unlawful. It is just that a junior police officer has caught up with you, so we want to show you real power. So they'll humiliate you for the sake. And since wananchi are also baying for blood, they want to see things like that. That's why you will be handcuffed. Then when you go to court, bail application, a magistrate will say, I'll rule next week. I'll rule about it next week. Then it comes back and imposes very difficult terms or very ridiculous, whatever, that when it goes to a judge says, this is. You see in developed countries that we are trying to emulate. You are arrested, you are notified, come to the district attorney's office on this date, you will be charged with this. The bail terms, which should be ordinary, will be 1, 2, 3, get ready. And you see people going in and coming out. What we should be looking at is having a quick trial, so that in 6 months, in 1 year, a decision has come. If we want to lock you in, we keep you, not through due process, not through convoluted process where we say, let's lock them in as they wait for bail, let's lock them in, arrest them on Friday, so that we lock them over the weekend. You see, all those things that are abusing power. On question of the thinking process, it appears that the governors themselves are not saying, we came into power when there were no structures, so there were certain excesses in the first term. We would like to correct these things so that none of us gets into this kind of trouble. That's the way I think Governor Nanaok and the rest would have looked at it and say, if there are areas that we didn't get right, we want our governors, every current governors and coming governors, to get these things right so that you do not get in trouble. But when you say, let us protect ourselves because we are big enough, that thinking is sickening.
It's sickening.
And we will continue praying for him.
Gitura, one of the things they raise also is the fact that when they are arrested in their quest for immunity, is that county matters suffer. Again, that sounds to some like a very flimsy excuse to want immunity. I mean that the fact that county matters suffer, if they were above board, right from the word go, then there would be no need of arrest, really.
You know, it's... we say democracy is always work in progress. It's never a finished product. So we keep learning. We keep learning. I don't agree with my colleague whether that the Western world is treats people differently. No, then he hasn't seen it when people are arrested there also. I think the issue, they're saying that why would a county suffer if a governor is, for instance, arrested? There should be a government in place. There's a deputy governor.
System.
And it assumes that the deputy governor then will take over the role of the governor until such time that he's able to come back to the county and deal with the issues of governance. I think the issue, they are skirting the issue, these governors. I think that what they should be addressing is the matter of corruption. And when you talk about corruption in counties or in this country, we are not saying everybody is corrupt. In fact, the people who are corrupt are not as many as people think. Like I keep saying on this show, we know them. I mean, they're the same. They are the names being mentioned all the time. Corruption is mentioned, the same people come up again. So the point I'm making is this, that we know for sure, because I was senator myself, that not all governors are corrupt. There are some governors who are doing a very good job, in my opinion, to effectuate devolution. And devolution is the future of this country. And we must laud them. We must congratulate them. We must applaud them and so they can continue to do a good job. And we know some of them. But then there are those who have made it their business to loot, literally loot the counties. And that is why they are so fearful. That's why you find so much sideshow about what Governor Nanoke is now saying, because they can see that there is a real possibility that there is going to be a lifestyle audit. And because they don't want that lifestyle audit to be done, because they hope that they can postpone all these things to the future, because they hope that when the immunity ends, when they stop being governors, there'll be maybe another president, there'll be another, different issues in this country. Therefore, they will not be pursued. That's why they won't now, because they can see that there is that real possibility that so-and-so might be asked to undergo a lifestyle audit, like the president has said, and which some of us support 100%. That's why they want immunity now. That's why they want immunity now, not tomorrow. Before
the lifestyle audit is coming.
So before it comes in, because if it does, if they get this immunity, of course they will not get the immunity they're asking for, because it's unconstitutional. We are not going to do a referendum to allow people to continue stealing. Yeah, to be a referendum to allow, plunder of our nation. So it's the sideshows that will continue until the law catches up with one or two of them, yeah, and then they are hauled into jail, and then they will see,
they come up.
and
right.
they will see when that happens that the counties will continue.
Is there double standards when it comes to arresting senior officers? Because we've also seen CSs who possibly would be questioned, but they don't seem to be arrested like the governors, which maybe is why they're saying that, look, there's double standards here from the national government. Honorable Kirwa.
Well, I don't want to get into the details, but I would want every Kenyan to be given some kind of decent handling. Whether I'm a suspected criminal, I should be handled with a decorum. Because unless we respect ourselves, no other person outside Kenya is going to respect us. And how we handle our citizenry is very important. Because at the end of the day, you and I are part and parcel of the society that we live in. And therefore, please let us handle individuals, whether they are governors, whether they are private citizens, unless you know this is a suspicious criminal who may run away from the police arrest. Handle people with decorum, whether they are ordinary citizens or whether they are in office.
Okay. Whether, when it comes to arrest as a lawyer, what are the rights of any citizen? Because the reason why the governors have come out up in arms is because they're saying that Ojamong, for example, was not treated with respect that his office deserves. But I think there is respect that is deserved by every Kenyan, especially at the point of arrest when you're innocent until proved guilty.
Yes. I would agree that Jamong was not treated...
Or not handled right.
Handled right. Not because he's governor, but because of the minimums. One, you're supposed to be informed of the offense. And then you, depending on how you react, are you cooperating or you are not cooperating? If you take somebody like Ojamong, I think he was summoned and he showed up. Now that means he's cooperating. And as he's cooperating, then the question of handcuffing and all this and locking in and so on and so forth should not come in. It's a question of you come in, you say, this is the offense, we have investigated, we have the following. What do you say? Then you write a reply. Then look at it and say, a decision has been made to book you in. You can be booked in. We book you in, then tomorrow very early in the morning, we take you to court. Or if you can't be in court by 6, tomorrow, this court will formally charge you. All those are open.
All right, Ellen, let me interrupt you. I'm told that there's some demonstrations that are taking place in Marikiti as we speak, with police dispersing crowds, and we're going to see those pictures now coming live. We're yet to get the details of what the protests are all about, but those are live images from Marikiti. So in case you're headed towards that area, you need to be a little bit cautious, knowing that there are some protests there. We can see that there is some burning tires that are on the road, not quite clear what the protests and the fight between the police and those protesters are all about. We're going to get our reporters there as soon as we can and basically get you that information. So those are live images coming from Marikiti, which is just downtown, as some would call it, with tires being burnt, and apparently we have security officers and operators clashing with protesters, but not clear what the protests are all about. Please approach the area with caution, and for those that can avoid the area in case that was part of your route to work, or maybe that's where you operate from, you just might want to take a different or alternative route, or be careful as you approach that area. And of course, as we can expect, there is going to be traffic also, given the time of the day it is. This is the time that many are driving into the central business district, and this is one of the arteries into the CBD, and therefore traffic is expected on those roads that lead to it. That would be Haile Selassie, and also Kimathi Street that comes towards that way would probably be chock-a-block. So that's protests that are taking place near Marikiti Market, and not clear yet what the protests are all about. But as we can see, we already have the police on the ground and already dispersing the crowds using tear gas and some tires that are being burnt while on the road or are on the road. And as soon as we get more details regarding those protests, we certainly will keep you posted right here on KTN News. Coming back to our subject is whether we feel or whether you feel that governors deserve to have immunity just like the president. This, of course, was brought about by the Council of Governor chair, and that is Josephat Nanok in a meeting that they had not too long ago. Honorable Kembi Kitura, as we wind up, one of the things that they have raised also is the question of the government apparently, according to them, trying to divert attention from other major issues. For instance, the NYS, the contraband sugar that we've been talking about. And according to the governors, the reason why even there was that dramatic arrest of Ojamong is to divert attention.
And my argument is that the governors are themselves trying to divert attention from the imminent fear of what I said earlier. But having said that, I agree with my colleagues here that there must be dignity and decorum according to every citizen. And the governor actually holds a very important position because he's elected by the people. And on issues of bail, for instance, the courts must always look at the fact of the question of whether or not the governor is a flight risk. If he presented himself to the police, I must also say I was surprised to see him
being cuffed.
Would he be refused bail? Is it possible that he's going to run away? I doubt it. Corruption issues, as we keep saying, are mostly documented issues that have to do with paper trail. So again, interfering with witnesses that you're going to tell your word and not to say this or the other thing are always unlikely. So that respect and decorum should be there, but not for governors, for every citizen. When they get bail, let it be reasonable. Let us look at all the facts of whether or not they are flight risks. To argue that they are being arrested or they will be arrested so that they can divert issues from what's happening in ministries, in my view, is ridiculous. Kenyans are not foolish, and Kenyans are not going to allow this to happen anymore. Kenyans are sick, they are tired, and they want to see corruption being dealt with the way it should be dealt with. Not sideshows. Not sideshows. And that is why they are so vigilant. And that is why I'm happy that almost all the media houses are taking this issue, because you play a very important role. Almost all the media houses are having this discussion kept live so that people can discuss it every day. And we are going to discuss it until we see an end to it. And sideshows will be, people try to have sideshows, and I want to assure them, without fear of contradiction, that they are going to fail.
Okay. Honorable Kira, we need to wind up because of time. Your message to the governors?
Well, my message to the governors is simple. If there are challenges of issues of procedure, because of course devolution was meant to devolve all the resources, including the human resource, if there are those challenges, then they should come out and accept that there is a problem, and they look for ways of addressing it. But on the issue of immunity, they should forget. We know Africa is full of examples. Like some of the countries, one country in West Africa, the president has enriched himself so much that he owns almost 1% of the GDP of the nation. And the other day, he made his son deputy president. This is something that should not happen in a country that is poor because of that, and there is no transformative agenda. We run the risk of having some of our governors being so rich that they own almost the county.
All right. Whether your closing comments?
All I can say is I think this one, the governor got it wrong. But I think where they have made mistakes, especially in governance, it is just human to correct, continue becoming better and better instead of trying to shield yourselves. We make mistakes as human beings, but we defeat the mistakes by being corrected and correcting as we move along. It's not about chest thumping. I wish Ojamong all the best as he defends himself. I hope he is innocent, and then we continue making our country better.
All right. Honorable Kembi Kitura, you have the last word.
Just to say, like I have said in the past, that corruption is the biggest enemy that we have in this country today. We have diseases ravaging our people, and that's very serious. Corruption, in my view, is the worst disease. And the governors should join hands in helping fight corruption. It's very unfortunate that so much money is devolved, taxpayers' money is devolved into the counties. Instead of helping the people, it ends up in people's pockets. Remember that corruption takes 30% of GDP. If our GDP is 900 billion shillings, you know that is 300, you know how much that is. Yeah, you know exactly how much is gone. That money, the 30%, can be used to build and equip youth polytechnics and technical training institutes, and which will help to create jobs in this country, to create opportunities in this country. So when we talk about corruption, it is eating away at the fabric of our society, and this is what we must, all of us, work to end. 30% of GDP is a very, very high sum indeed. And this is what we must protect at all means, and we must stop sideshows. We must stop having these sideshows, and we must do what is right and what is correct for our country. And we could see a very big transformation. When you look at countries like I was mentioning earlier, a country like Malaysia, where the Prime Minister seems like he's headed, former Prime Minister looks like he's headed to prison. If you look at Pakistan, where the former Prime Minister was jailed for 10 years, this should be clear indicators of what could happen here and why those countries have leapt faster than we have towards development when we are still lagging behind. We must work towards ending corruption, and it is not just the job of the president. When people say the buck stops with the president, they forget a very important fact, that each one of us has a duty towards fighting.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Kembi Gitura, there, former senator for Murang'a County. We also have Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, deputy party leader for ANC. And last but not least, Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer, for joining us this morning on State of the Nation. We're going to wind up right there. But before that, just a quick reminder of that information that's coming through on Marikiti, where, as you can see on your screen now, there are protests that are taking place, and it's not yet clear what the protests are all about, but we can see that there's heavy police presence and definitely taking matters, trying to get the place back into control. We earlier on saw tires that were being burnt on the road, but it is not yet clear what the protests are all about. As soon as our reporters are on the ground, we certainly will keep you posted. Please approach the area with caution. As you can see, it is already a security concern with the police firing and dispersing crowds with tear gas. Not clear what exactly the issue might be. So wherever you are, you're likely to experience heavier traffic, especially if you're coming into the central business district, because as you know, this is an artery into the CBD, and as a result, it's likely to affect other areas, especially given this is the time that many people are possibly driving into the city. As we can see there, police still firing into the air. Canisters of tear gas to disperse the crowds. As you can also see, there's some burning tires on the roads there. We've got blocks of stones on the road as well, blocking the road. Yet to get clarity as to what the protests are all about this very early morning. This is at Wakulima Market, also known as Marikiti Market or Wakulima Market, whichever you choose, is that area just near Mudhurwa, where we have a lot of trade that goes on there. So those are live images of what is happening there right now. As soon as we get details of what the protests are all about, we certainly will keep you posted. For now, we want to take a short break, but we'll be right back. Right here on Morning Express.